Welcome to this Last Mile Profits video, the last word on the last mile. Are PUDOs underrated in the last mile? To find out more, stay tuned. Modern Expo provides an integral ecosystem of screen-operated lockers, screenless autonomous solutions, refrigerated lockers, and even personal parcel lockers, powered by in-house developed software. Gary, today we're going to talk about a topic that I know is very close to both of our hearts. The topic is PUDO. Alternatively, I think for our American listeners, an access point. I think that's what they call them.
The UPS term for them is access point. But FedEx have a different term for them, and obviously for post office, USPS, it's post offices. But yeah. Access point, most people would understand in the States.
So whatever we call them, PUDOs, access points, packet shops, you name it, my view has always been that they are a critical element of the out-of-home last mile. And, I read endless reports now saying how it's all about lockers. And yeah, lockers are super sexy and they are important, but they've got several drawbacks. And I don't think there's many people better placed to discuss this particular topic than you. So maybe we'll kick off. Tell us, what's your view? Am I right or am I wrong in being so protective about PUDOs being part of the equation?
Yeah, they absolutely definitely do, Marek. I mean, the first example of PUDO definitely in the UK market was 2009 when there was a three-way tie-up between PayPoints, Yodel, and what's now the Very Group, the mail order business, to create an out-of-home solution that was fairly unique at the time. And it's been an important part of the way that stuff has been delivered ever since. I think something like 30% of Very's parcels go through that network because it's a very, very convenient way for their customers to receive their orders.
So my perspective has always been this. Lockers are super efficient. They make a lot of sense in places like petrol stations where the staff don't have a great deal of time, where they're actually usually in a fairly tight space selling other high-value items like, at least in Poland, alcohol, cigarettes, etc. So they make sense there. But in many other places where perhaps you don't have the volume and where the sharing economy works, because you're using an existing convenience store, etc., it makes sense because, number one, it's really easy to set up. Didn't you tell me that at the end of your tenure in the industry, you were able to set one up for under 100 quid pop?
Yeah, we developed a really excellent app, so a store could use their own mobile phone to do it, and you could get them up and running for a very low sum of money, yeah.
So I think it's very cheap. If you've got good processes and intuitive apps, it's very simple. You can basically set up a couple of PUDOs, talking about peak, which is something else we did a video cast on just now. It gives you a chance to create a whole lot of extra points in a very short space of time. And the final thing, I actually saw some research which suggested there are groups of people that still feel happier talking to an individual.
For every person that's a curmudgeon like me that would rather talk to a computer screen or a metal box, there's somebody else that does crave that human interaction. I think the one thing that's interesting is the volume threshold at where one becomes more or less viable than the other, and I see that's becoming really critical debate in the industry. With a PUDO, you could argue, well, even one parcel a day or one parcel a week solves a problem for a customer. Provides an access point for the carrier, and is even a tiny bit of income for the retailer. But you couldn't sustain that for a locker. If you put a locker there, you need at least a decent throughput to cover the capex to justify taking up the space. So they're below a certain threshold. There'll always be a place for a PUDO equivalent service where a locker it can't be sustained. I absolutely definitely think that's something to consider. And I'm seeing more evidence of that volume criticality being a key decision-making part of the process.
Well, I'll add two other things. One is that however you look at it, a locker is a piece of metal or sometimes wood, and there's a limit to what you can do to get bigger capacity at peak. Whereas a PUDO, in many cases, you can pay a few bob extra and actually say to them, look, just for peak time, can you take not 20 parcels a day, but 30 or 40? So I think that's one of the important elements.
my old boss used to describe them as having elastic walls. They might have been
Exactly.
full when they were doing 10 every day, but if you squeeze hard enough, you'll get 15 or 23.
100% agree. And there's one other thing. If you want to sell something or give some other value added service, probably over time that will change. But at the moment, there's a limit to what you can do in the locker. So, if you want the instantaneous gratification, I've picked up my parcel and I got a voucher today in the convenience store, I can buy this item with 20% off. It will work much better. Of course, if the locker's next to the store, that also works. But if you're in the PUDO point, and the other thing, if you need to do something like perhaps with a high value item for a return, you open the box and check it. That's stuff that a locker, at least today, cannot do.
No, absolutely. And I don't see a lot of evidence of people opening boxes and checking stuff in the store. That was something that we never did. And the more complicated you made the process in the store, the greater chance you had of it failing. If I was to say the one huge advantage of lockers over PUDO is 100% scanning compliance. You always know when something's been received. You always know when something's been picked up. And many of the PUDOs that are around do excellent service and will repeat that 100% scanning compliance and have great processes. But equally, there was always a subset that did terrible service at that. And it's very expensive managing, retraining, coercing, persuading, incentivizing, rewarding, punishing, just to get the scans done, to make sure that every carrier lives and dies by its scanning excellence. And if you've got a weak link, then it really does get exposed very quickly.
Well, I'll just tell you something then. Watch this space. I'll see you at Post Expo because I think we're both fans, and I think a lot of the issues that you've mentioned can be dealt with. It's not easy, but just remember these two words: perfect PUDO. That's going to come back. Thanks for watching this Last Mile Profits video. For more up-to-date last mile news and analysis, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn.